Hi, and welcome back to the Recruitment Acceleration podcast, brought to you by AI Recruiter at airecruiter.com. I'm Martyn Redstone, and I'm here today with Craig Grant.
Hello.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Martyn. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining me today. So, Craig, let's jump straight into this interview-style podcast. First question, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you currently based?
So, as you said, Craig Grant, I'm a director at Cititec. Been there for 22 years. So, joined them when I was 18. We used to be based in Old Street, but now I'm based from my home office and eager to get back to the office as quickly as possible.
I think everybody's feeling like that right now. So tell me a little bit more about Cititec. What do you guys do there?
So Technology Recruiter focused predominantly on cloud, data and software engineering. Sorry, I almost forgot our elevator pitch for a second there. Yeah, cloud, data and software engineering would be the three main pillars that we recruit into.
Brilliant. And how long has the business been going for? You said you've been there 20 years. Was it going before that? Or
yeah, so business started in 1998. I joined in 1999. I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks. My brother set up the company the year before. He's a bit older than me. I won't say his age because if he's watching this, he'll get a bit cross. I was kind of didn't really fancy university. Was wasting away in a couple of jobs that wasn't really doing that much. And he wanted to show me what city life was like, so asked me to come up for a couple of weeks just to see what it was all about and to try and help me get interviews with I suppose slightly more salubrious companies than the companies I was working in. And yeah, first day was cleaning the stationery cupboard, a job that I actually still really enjoy doing today, believe it or not. And generally just making teas and coffees and getting a feel for it. I think within a week or so of me being there, the person that was producing the contracts had to go on long-term sickness. So I remember getting a phone call with a handover and said, "Oh, can you be our contracts admin person?" I was like, "Yeah, all right." So I spent the first, I don't know how much you want me to say, but I
go for it. No, go for it.
You know, I'm a talker. So
absolutely. Yeah, you tell me.
Boring, just cut me off.
No, that's fine. Give me the whole thing. How you went from cleaning a stationery cupboard to being director of the business. Go for it.
I will let you know. It take me 20 years to get there, but I'll let you know. So started doing the contracts, progressed to do that, as well as, we got computers in the office. We'd finally, we've been so reliant on the fax machine. We finally got a computer with an email in it. And one of my jobs every day was to check that computer once an hour and see what CVs had come in and give them to the consultants. Faxing CVs across the clients was a big one. Always remember the sales director telling me if they had a job in where they knew they were multi-agency, telling me to try and block the fax machine with blank pieces of paper for as long as possible, so only our CVs could get submitted. Not quite I don't know if I should be saying that on the podcast, but it was 20 years ago. And really just gravitated to a role that was essentially back office manager within 2 or 3 years of being in the company. I performed every single back office function, even worked with the accounts department, producing supplier invoices, etc. And I was kind of the person that when people went on holiday, I'd learn their job, learn how to do it. So within a couple of years, say maybe 3 years, I was the head of back office, and probably a really great grounding for a recruitment sales director to have, because I really understand the pain points of a back office environment. Cititec then set up a systems integration consultancy under the Cititec group, and I was employed by those guys to essentially manage their whole back office for them. As a new company, they needed someone who could go in and do all of that. And they won their first big project, which was a Murex project over in Italy, I believe. And the director of the company sat me down in front of the database of CVs, Murex CVs, and said, "Right, can you phone these 200 people today and qualify them with these 10 questions?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." And that was my first day in recruitment, and that's all I've done ever since.
Wow.
So, that's kind of been the, I suppose, evolution into sales. I did try and get a sales job at Cititec, actually. I won't say who, but one of the people at a Christmas party turned around to me and said, why don't you beep off to university and do us all a favor? So I kind of always knew that I wanted to be in sales, because someone says I can't do something, it kind of gives me that inspiration to want to go and do it more. So when I got the opportunity in sales, I absolutely grabbed it, and found myself back at Cititec about 3 years later, providing, well, I suppose as a salesperson for them. I loved my opportunity with the consulting company, but consultancy sales was too slow for me. You know, there'd be these 6 to 12 month lead time projects. You'd get all the way through and you'd get a no at the end, and I just couldn't handle that. I needed something more fast paced. Recruitment was certainly better suited to me, and especially contract recruitment in the noughties. That was exactly what I liked doing. You'd get a call from a manager in the morning with a role, and by the afternoon you'd have someone on site, and that for me was that was brilliant.
Fast paced.
Fast paced, very different today. Very different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So cool. It's a really interesting journey with a bit of a gap in between, moving away, but sounds like you've had a really interesting journey. Like I said, going from cleaning out the stationery cupboard up to sales director is a pretty interesting career. And yeah, from one end of the scale to the other.
Yeah, it has been really cool, and I think it's really interesting, because I think I was the reason why I got one of the initially a job in management within Cititec was by virtue of being their top salesperson for quite a few years. And I think one of the biggest mistakes recruitment agency owners make, it's really doing myself out of a job here as well, is employing your top biller to be a manager. Because actually that shift for me was the hardest shift I ever made. As a recruiter, I was a farmer. I was responsible for a hunter even. I was responsible for my own destiny. I had my desk. I had my patch. I knew what I needed to do. I knew that next deal was going to pay X amount off my mortgage, and that next deal I'd be able to go and, you know, support myself in this or buy that. And all of a sudden, I was expected to manage people, and it was a massive, massive learning curve. And I think today, when we look for managers within Cititec, we would look for people who have the best skills to manage and not necessarily the best figures on the board. Because actually, some of the best salespeople out there simply just need to be left on their own island to go and sell. Some of them will gravitate absolutely into recruitment managers, recruitment leaders, and have their own businesses. Some people just need to be left to go and sell. So I suppose my first piece of advice, even if you're not asking for it, is be careful who you promote, because for me, that was probably the hardest challenge I had in my recruitment career, moving from being friends with these people to managing them and understanding the difference between satisfying my own and the company's needs versus satisfying the people who reported into me and their needs. And that was really tough.
No, I can imagine. It's something that a few people go through in their career, and it's always a really interesting and really tough transition, going from, you know, somebody who's a top bidder into management. You're right. Sometimes it's not the right skill set. Sometimes it's not the right fit in terms of managing people compared to managing your own destiny, managing your desk. Is really interesting. And absolutely, you know, any piece of advice to other recruiters, any other recruitment business leaders, feel free to pass them over. That's the point of this podcast. We want to help people think about the way that they do things, and hopefully offer some information on how they might be able to do things differently or better. So yeah, thank you very much.
That was the only bit of advice I had. That was all I can give. Sorry, mate.
That's fine. Let's leave it there. No, look, you know, we want to find out more about you as well. So I've got a couple more questions to ask you. The first thing I want to know is, obviously, being in recruitment for the last 20 years, that you've got a bit of a passion about it, I would have thought, by now. So in one sentence, why do you think recruitment is awesome?
One sentence? I can give you 2 words. Changing lives. Genuinely, I think I always remember looking up, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a kid, and being quite fascinated about that kind of pyramid. And when you look at what recruitment can offer, and you look at, let's say, the basic needs of, you know, food, warmth, water, security, safety, by me putting someone in a job that potentially, hopefully, would be a higher paid job than they're in, I'm giving them, you know, I'm helping them achieve those basic needs. from a psychological need, if I'm putting them into a great job, they're building better relationships, better friendships, they've got a better feeling of accomplishment. And then if you look at all the way to the top of that kind of self-actualization and that self-fulfillment, what I do really, and it sounds so cheesy, and I'm sure every recruiter says it, but I'm genuine when I do say it. For me, it's not about the fee. For me, it's about knowing that I've done a really great job in solving a client's issue and giving someone an amazing work opportunity. I've had some real highs and lows in my recruitment world, and they're generally down to the fact of me doing either a really good job or a really bad job. And I can give you the two examples. My favorite ever placement was my smallest ever deal ever. And I spoke to a client who phoned me up and said, we're just chatting away. And he said, oh, and if you ever find someone for Argentina, let me know, because we're doing a system rollout, Murex system rollout in Argentina, and I need someone for there. And my next call, I was chatting to this French guy. And again, end of the call, he said, oh, and by the way, if my wife's Argentinian, it was literally the next call. My wife's Argentinian. If you ever hear of anything in Argentina, please let me know.
Wow.
One of the toughest deals I've ever had to put together. It took 6 months to put together. I think the fee was 3,500, which in the Murex world and my recruitment world is the smallest deal I've ever placed. But it was my most satisfying deal because there's someone there who wants to move to Argentina to continue and progress their career, and I was able to give them that option. The antithesis of that was I was working with a chap, and this wasn't actually Murex related, this is a different application, who was in a very, very happy perm role at his current company. And I was able to offer him a contract job that was paying more than double to what he would earn. And initially he got the offer through, and it was a 3-month contract. It was supposed to be a year-long contract, and it was just for 3 months. And he turned it down. He said, look, I'm in a really, really great job. I can sit here for the rest of my career. I can progress. It's great. And I said, all right, no worries, let me see what I can do. So I went back to the end client, who was one of the consulting companies, and they said, you know what, we know this project's going to last for a year. Don't worry, we will arrange for a year contract. And by this point, the candidate was a bit worried and said, well, look, I'm going to need to have no notice in the contract at all. There can be no notice period, which the client also agreed to. So he felt comfortable to leave, take this job that was paying more than double. I felt really comfortable that he was going to be there. 3 weeks into the job, the client lost the project and wants to issue notice. I said, well, we've already said you can't issue notice because we didn't put a notice in the contract. And they pointed out, because they had a direct contract with him, pointed out clause 26,001.A, which basically said that they'll only pay on a signed timesheet. And the fact he doesn't have a signed timesheet, they can't pay him. So they'll stick to the contract, that's fine, but they're not going to be able to give him any money for it. Spoke to the guy 6 months later who lost his house. And that's what I mean when I talk about how important it is that it's not about the fee. We are really messing with people's lives here. If you think it's appropriate to put someone into a job just to get your fee at the end of the day, you could really impact someone's life to the point that they could lose their home. So that's why for me, when you say what are the I can't remember what 2 words I came up with, but for me, we are changing lives, and we've got to recognize we can do that for the better most of the time, but also for the worse if we get it wrong.
Really interesting. No, thanks for sharing those 2 stories. And I think you're right. It shows one end of the spectrum to the other. And the reason why you need to care about candidates and the effect that you're having on their lives. Yeah. Really interesting. No, thanks for sharing that.
I got serious there. It's not like
me, you got very serious.
I got a bit emotional telling that story because always a horrible story, that one.
I think it's important that those kind of experiences are shared as well, because it gets people thinking about the impact they do have on people's lives. So really appreciate you sharing that. And and how that made you feel, and the impact on the candidate as well.
He wouldn't actually talk to me. I'd love to see how he is now and hope it's okay. But when he told me that about losing house, he just didn't want to talk to me, even though it was all stuff out of my control. And I can understand that as well. But
absolutely. Well, look, if he's listening randomly, then feel free to reach back out. I'm sure you'd love to.
Cool.
So listen, let's get on to something a bit more positive, I suppose.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, so I know that you love your tech. I know that you love your apps and all those kind of things. So look, is there one piece of tech or one app that that you use in order to help you be more productive or to get things done better? A bit of a life hack, a bit of a shortcut. Yeah.
Yeah, I do use a lot of tech. I use a lot of apps. I probably there's so many that I use, particularly in the recruitment world, that I think it would be wrong to name one of them for fear of upsetting the others because they're all brilliant. I think one of the massive ones for me that I'm using at the moment that has been amazing is Calendly, which I started using about a year ago. And it just saves that whole faffing around of, oh, when are you available? When are you available? I know when we booked this, we did it through a similar tool. I think the Google suite of products, I'm a big fan of Google products. So he says sitting with his iPhone, but we use Google in the business, and I love the Google suite of products to enable us to run our business more effectively. Things like Google Drive is incredible. I love the way that the Google Notes or the Google version of Word and Excel update as they go along. So you don't actually need to save it, and if you make a mistake or if you've closed it down by accident, you just go straight back to it. Actually, one of my favorite hacks is the keyboard shortcut hack. So there's certain things that I put in emails regularly, and I know Google have brought in this kind of AI tool. It can always predict what I'm going to say anyway, which is pretty impressive. But there's certain things that I'll put at the end of an email saying, look, it'd be really great to find a time to speak. And I've got certain shortcuts. So for example, if I press 3 exclamation marks and 3 stars, it will come up with a line, it would be really great to find a time to chat. So please feel free to book a link into my calendar below. So that's a really good life hack. So I'm constantly writing that line out, and it drove me mad in the end. I just set up a quick shortcut, 3 stars, 3 exclamation marks, and then that line appears. So there'd be one of my life hacks anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, keyboard shortcuts. It's I know so many people that are starting to use those now. And people think, oh, well, it takes me like 2 seconds to type a line. It is actually, if you've got things that you're just repeating email after email after email, it's a huge time saver.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And it might take 2 seconds to type that line out, but it takes 0.1 seconds to go and just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very important life hack. If you're making a toasted cheese sandwich, don't put butter on the outside. Use marmalade. Mayonnaise. So when you get those toasted cheese ones and you put them in the bit of tuna in it, maybe put them in the frying pan. Yeah, mayonnaise on the outside gives you a beautiful crispy layer.
I mean, this is just you just keep the info coming. This is brilliant.
I know, right?
I'll tell you what then. If we're on the subject, what's your favourite sandwich?
Oh, toasted tuna and cheese. It's got to be.
Do you know what? Absolutely, it's what I have for lunch. Yeah.
Is it really?
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Love it.
Yeah. See, the missus made me a oven baked mushrooms with cheese on top for lunch today. But otherwise, It would have been a tuna melt. It's got to be, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
But honestly, try it in the frying pan, mayonnaise on the bread instead. It's really, beautiful crisp to it.
Good to know. That is a life hack right there. Mayonnaise on the outside of a toasted sandwich. So I know that you do quite a lot on LinkedIn, and you've done quite a lot of videos, and you've been quite open about Craig Grant publicly.
Yeah. And Craig Grant, he's a decent.
And Craig Grant as well. Nice guy.
Yeah. Not as good as me, but he's all right.
No, obviously, he's not as good looking as you either. But but tell us something about you that people wouldn't know.
Oh, there's probably not a lot, because I tend to put myself out there quite a bit. I'm not frightened to talk about anything really. I'm not frightened to talk about things that are going on personally. I think it's good to share. I suppose people don't know my retirement dream.
Okay.
It's not something I talk about a lot.
Go for it.
I want to have a rescue farm. I want to be an animal rescuer when I'm older. I've got a massive passion for animals. Currently housing 2 older dogs, a tortoise, various stick insects. In fact, my wife, before we had kids, had a business that was a pet sitting business. So my house would be a zoo full of all sorts of wonderful animals. But yeah, I can't bear animal cruelty. I get really upset when it comes to the dog festival that happens every year in China. Something that I passionately believe needs to stop immediately. I can't understand if people would like to eat dogs, and personally I don't eat meat anymore myself, but I can't understand how they could be so brutal to animals at the same time, and that's it goes across anyone who can be cruel to animals. So for me to have the time to dedicate to rescue as many animals as possible, foster and rehome, that's my retirement dream. So that's what I'm kind of gearing up towards, hopefully in the next 10 to 15 years.
What a lovely dream. Absolutely.
55,
yeah, no, that's
I'm
really
saying
nice.
55, 15 years time, and then I can start saving the animals.
Love it. No, that's really good. That's really good. Really interesting. So, is there an everyday thing that you are better at than anyone else? Do you have a party trick, anything like that?
Sleeping.
Keep it clean for the kids.
I'm really good at sleeping. I
Okay.
don't think anyone can do a Donald Duck impression like I can.
Oh, come on then. Let's hear it.
Really? Can you do one?
No.
Oh, okay. There's actually one person who can, but I can't believe we're doing this in a recruitment podcast. It's supposed to be a serious business. So I can do. Hello, just to make you. Sorry, that was yeah. Is that
Very good.
any good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do Donald Duck sneezing? No.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just
not getting
brilliant.
it back, Martyn. I'm not getting.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not rolling around in laughter. But hey, look, that is impressive to be able to do that. I mean, every time I try and do Donald Duck, I just get a sore throat from it. So.
Really? Oh, see, you're doing it in the wrong place. It needs to come from the side, not the throat.
Ah, so that's your secret.
From there, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I genuinely think that clip right there is going to hit our TikTok. So make sure you look out for that. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Buzzing. What's TikTok?
Something the kids are into.
Oh, fine, wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Too old. It's actually a problem app, to be honest with you.
It's a what? Sorry.
It's a bit of a problem app.
How so?
It's one of those apps that you can go onto late at night, say 11 o'clock before you're about to go to bed. And before you know it, and you've done endless scrolling, it's like 2 a.m, and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. It's quite good fun though.
It is good fun. I tend to keep away from it for that exact reason, that it can be very addictive. But yeah,
you can't forward the videos, can you? So like on YouTube, kind of watch a video and forward the bits you don't want to see. This, you're kind of like watching it thinking, do I want to watch this? Is this a waste of time? And it turns out to be, but you can't even, can't forward it. Clever app.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, look out for a clip of Craig doing a Donald Duck impression on our TikTok.
Okay.
Brilliant. So back to something a little bit serious, I suppose.
Go on.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
You could have prepped me with some questions, Martyn.
I did.
I mean, next time you do something like this, can't you just prep someone with the questions you're going to ask?
I did. I'm pretty sure I sent you all these questions. It's not my fault you didn't read them.
So I've been quite vocal about the grief that I suffered a couple of years ago now with my brother Paulie. Left me far too young, and he was my rock, my go-to, the only person in this world I've ever had a telepathic relationship with, even though we were 21 years apart. And he always was an amazing advice giver. And I think as he knew that he was pretty sick and unwell, I wouldn't say created these quotes, I don't think they're necessarily his, but he wrote a book called The World According to Paul, which unfortunately remains unfinished, will be finished by his daughter. And the ones that stood out to me are really, really true. And I really try and put them into my world. Don't sweat the small stuff. No point sweating the small stuff at all. And if I find myself sweating the small stuff, my wife will say to me, what would Paul say? Don't sweat the small stuff. And don't worry about things that are outside of your control, because we've all got crap going on in our lives. And if it's something you can control and you can change it, then yeah, worry about it, and think about, maybe not worry, but think about it, because you can change it. But if it's something you can't change, like for example, coronavirus, I can't change how quiet or busy we're necessarily going to be. I can't change the fact that the clients we're predominantly used to working with won't work with us. What I can control and change is new client business that we'll try and bring in. But I can't change the fact that we had 20 clients that would give us 2 or 3 jobs a week or a month, and they are not hiring anymore. So I cannot be worried about that, because I cannot control it. What I will focus on is the stuff I can control and the differences I can make. The final one, which was actually taught to me, there's a couple of recruitment ones actually, which I think are quite relevant. kill people with kindness. I think it's very easy to get frustrated with people, be it a hiring manager who's annoying you, be it a candidate who's not committing or is being a bit elusive. Just be kind, because it's very, very hard for someone to be rude to you when you're being nice to them. And it's a much nicer way to be. Kill people. I actually had a call today where the guy for the first 10 minutes was being a right. And actually, I was just so nice that we actually had a really, really nice call. Ended up speaking about 45 minutes. And in the end, got a lot out of the call. And the first lesson I ever learned in recruitment, I'm sorry to drone on, I think it's quite a nice story, was the first job I ever worked in recruitment was for a software tester. And I remember advertising the job that night and coming back into my inbox with about 500 responses. And it's impossible as a recruiter, a single person trying to filter through responses to get through to everyone. And there was this one guy who called me, who I didn't think he was right for the job, but he kept on calling me. He kept on persisting to call. And I spoke to my colleague. I said, just do me a favor, just tell him that the job's been filled or something. I don't want to talk to him. And my colleague said to me, and it was something that rings true today, it's the testers of today that are the hiring managers of tomorrow. And you never know what you're going to get out of that call. So in the end, I did take that call. And if the guy's watching, you know who you are. I won't say your name because I've told him the story. I did take that call. He wasn't right for my job, but we had a really, really good chat. He was right for a job that I got in 2 days later, which I put him into. He grew to become, he's actually almost at, I suppose, MD level now within the investment banking arena. He has hired probably close to, not him alone, but his company that he introduced me to. We've probably hired over 10 years, 100 contractors to work for them. That one piece of advice was something that I tell all of my rookies and all of my trainees. You're going to get something out of every call. So even if you think it's not relevant, even if you have to speak to them for 2 or 3 minutes and say, look, I'm really sorry you're not right for this role. Let's keep in touch. Take that call.
Nice. I like it. It's the old adage of the candidate of today is the client of tomorrow. So yeah.
I thought I made that up.
Oh, sorry. But no, you're right, and it's such an important thing to remember, and not one that many people do remember.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you're right. You know, if you give somebody service now, they're going to remember it in the future, and in the future, they may be hiring, they may want to use you. So I think it's a really important piece of advice for everybody.
I think also, I think the one thing people mistaken is you speak to that new client for the first time and you put them on a pedestal because you want something from them. So you mind your P's and Q's, you're really polite, you're really engaging. You should also speak to that candidate who's not right for the job in the same way. You should speak to everyone. You should speak to everyone in the same way that you speak to that client for the first time on that pitching call. Because everyone deserves the same respect as that person. Just because you need something from them, it doesn't mean you should treat other people differently.
So on that basis, how do you think that automation is going to affect that candidate relationship then, where a lot of people now are using automated screening, automated responses? How do you think that's going to affect the candidate relationship?
I think it's a really interesting one, because I think technology is coming into I mean, wow, what year am I in? 1990? Technology is changing and evolving the world that we live in. Absolutely, completely changing it. I think even if you look at what's going down at the moment with coronavirus and how, just the fact we've got all this information coming into us. If coronavirus happened 15 years ago, I think the economy would be in a far worse position, because we wouldn't have the ability to meet as easily and work from home. But I think from a society point of view, we'd feel a lot better because we're not being bombarded constantly with information that we're getting on our iPhones. And I think there's a real fine line between making automation work in recruitment and not. I remember speaking to a guy called Russell Quirk, who set up eMove. And unfortunately, they went bust. And I was reading an article that he wrote, and he was really surprised about the fact that when he set up eMove as one of the first online estate agencies, that it would absolutely capitalize the market and get complete control. And because everyone hates estate agents like they hate recruitment agents. I mean, if you've got an online function to do it, why wouldn't you just use that?
Yeah.
But it only captured about 10% of the market in the end, 10% market share. And it's, I think, because there's such big decisions and there's such big negotiations that people do want a middleman, someone to negotiate things like salary, notice period, days holiday, shares, equity, and all that kind of stuff. There's absolutely a place for automation. And if you're using it in a candidate process, if you're using it to get referencing, if you're using it to get back to candidates who have been rejected for an opportunity. I don't know if that's maybe the best idea. It's not always nice to receive a phone call, but I suppose it depends on the role you're working. There's going to be a place for automation, but it has to have a human touch alongside it. Some of the stuff that you guys are doing is incredible. And I think what you're doing allows us to use automation, but also have a human element in there as well.
Yeah, so important. You need to know where the line is, and where you can then hand back over to the human, to the recruiter, to nurture that relationship, and to have to have more worthwhile, more meaningful conversations that do nurture that relationship. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, I think we get a lot of applications. I'm working jobs at the moment where I'm still getting applications of people that are completely irrelevant for the role. I've got one role I'm looking for capital markets experience. I need that investment banking experience. The person who hasn't got that commercial knowledge of capital markets cannot do this job. And the amount of applications I've had of people without that when you do put, for example, a chatbot or automation on top of it, at the application say, look, have you got capital markets? No, I haven't. Look, and the chatbot can message a person, say, look, we're really, really sorry. We can't consider you because this is a prerequisite of the role. But if you'd like to have a chat with somebody about your next opportunity, let's get something set up. That's where it works really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. So finally, and very quickly, what do you think's next in the world of recruitment?
I think recruitment's definitely moving towards talent solutions. I think that companies want and need a single recruitment company sitting on site who know their culture and understand them. I think culture is such a big part of people accepting a job. And I think that the worst type of job spec I receive is a wish list of skills. Actually, the perfect job spec is, if I'm looking at an A4 piece of paper, about that much on skills and this much about culture, career progression, opportunity. And I think that if you've got 10 different recruitment companies working your job, which is your wish list of skills, don't be surprised if we were going to be sent is candidates who match the keywords of those skills, but don't necessarily match what you're looking for in terms of a personality and a cultural fit. And I'm not saying by that everyone in this company needs to be exactly the same. Everyone's, the best way to hire is to hire different types of people. But I think that where recruitment has to go is where clients find their dedicated agency or supplier they want to work with and use them as their all-encompassing talent solutions expert who not only understands the skills they're looking for, not only understands the culture that's within the business, but also can plan forward and will know that, okay, well, in a year's time, we're hoping to go for Series B. This is what we're going to be looking to do. And these are types of people we're going to be needing. So you're pipelining candidates, maybe even a year in advance of actually hiring. And I think then recruitment's going to be a really, really special place because there's nothing worse for a recruiter to work a job of a wish list of skills. That's with 10 agencies that you're literally just doing keyword recruitment. That's all you're doing.
Interesting. So becoming that strategic partner in sourcing the right talent for the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Well, look, Craig, thank you so much for joining me today on the Recruitment Acceleration podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Well, look, please listen out for Craig's episode and lots more to come from other experts in the world of recruitment. And remember to follow us on all of the social channels and subscribe to our video and podcast series. Once again, Craig, thank you so much for joining me today.
Cheers, Martyn. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.